The potential of independence within the world, and I want to return to my themes and put some flesh on those bones. Firstly, the theme of peace and reconciliation is something I feel very strongly about, because I think that is a role that Scotland can play in the world. And I think that is it is a laudable thing that Scotland can undertake, because in this area it's small nations that can play a big role. It's much harder for big countries with imperial traditions to do that. And so if you look around the world at various parts of the world where there are difficulties, you will see countries like Norway, you will see countries like Finland in the past weeks, a country like Austria doing that. You'll have heard of the Oslo Accords playing a role in the Middle East. You'll be aware of the role, if you study international relations, of Norwegian diplomats in Sri Lanka. You'll be aware of the recent peace efforts in Kosovo undertaken by the former Finnish President Matti Ahtisaari. In the past, the first country that began to try and bring the PLO into the international community and try and bring Israel and Palestine together was Austria. So small countries have in the past played a big role, and I think we should try and follow that lead. And I think we have tremendous attributes that would allow us perhaps to be even more successful than the likes of Norway or Finland or in Austria. Why? Well, I think there's certain geopolitical reasons why a country which is English-speaking, that is somewhere between the European continent and the United States, one which does have an imperial past, that has been around the world, that also did nasty things. So Scotland's we're not a victim. We have played our role in an imperial project. It's one that I'm not particularly proud of. But we do have that background, so we understand how nations in other parts of the world feel about things. We have a great reputation around the world. Kind of difficult to define why that is, but most people have an opinion of Scotland in other parts of the world. For some people it might be linked with cliches, from whiskey to golf to bagpipes to kilts to various other things. Frankly, I don't care why people have an impression. People have an impression, and it tends to be positive. And I think that's something that we can use. And something that's been quite interesting for me in recent years is the recognition internationally, although it's not much reported here, of the journey that Scotland has made in recent years. Because we are an unicum, there are very few places in the world that have seen a democratic, civic, not ethnic, nationalist movement. When I say I represent the Scottish National Party in Francophone countries or German countries, I very rarely transliterate, because if you say national in German, it means far right. If you say national in French, people think of Jean-Marie Le Pen, and I tend to say, well, think of the Indian National Congress or the African National Congress. We are a moderate left of centre movement. We are a party that doesn't care where people come from, it's about where we are going. And we are, those of us in the SNP are particularly proud of the fact that we are the first party to have elected a Scots Asian to the Scottish Parliament. I say incidentally also our Welsh colleagues from Plaid Cymru have done the same in the Welsh National Assembly. So in other parts of the world, people look at Scotland and say, you guys are doing something that's very interesting, perhaps moving a little bit slower than some of us would like. I would like Scotland to be independent tomorrow. But I only want us to be independent when people want that, when we bring people with us, when we persuade people that it's the best way to go. But we shouldn't forget that this is an attribute. This is something that we can use to help other parts of the world work through some of the problems that they have. And there's already been an example for that. In 2003, parliamentarians from Armenia, from Azerbaijan and Georgia had their first peace and reconciliation talks outside the former Soviet Union. Took place in my constituency in Craigellachie. And that's why I know that all of these attributes are things that people in other parts of the world recognise and would be happy to take more account of and use more. And I think an independent Scottish government should use that as a mainstay of our international policy. Sticking with the force for good theme, one of the second main reasons why I believe Scotland should become independent, and again this is perhaps something that people in the audience who are not from Scotland may not be aware of, is Scotland has the highest megatonnage of offensive nuclear military capability of any country in the world. We have the entire UK nuclear fleet based in Scotland, Trident submarines, who could destroy the world several times over, and This at a time of global proliferation, where people have concerns about what's happening with chemical, biological, and also nuclear weapons. And the UK has signalled that they want to renew the Trident fleet. So not only have we had it, but we're going to get more of it, and a newer system based here. I'm definitely convinced that that is not the Scotland that I want to see in the world, to have our reputation associated with massive spending on a nuclear missile system that, if it were ever used, would create horrific damage and kill people indiscriminately, whether they were competent, non-competent, men, women, or children. I say incidentally at this point that in Scotland we have already voted, both in the Scottish Parliament and at Westminster, and every single opinion poll shows that we are opposed to having Trident in Scotland. But we will get it so long as we don't have the power to change that. And to be able to do that, we have to have the powers of independence. What I would like to see is Scotland emulating South Africa. Nelson Mandela. He's held up as a hero, not just because of the role he played in taking South Africa out of the apartheid era, but also because he stood up and he repudiated the nuclear ambitions that the former government of South Africa had. We look at other countries like Ukraine or Brazil. There are others who have said we need to put a stop to this. I appreciate that it's difficult for the global superpowers of the United States and Russia and perhaps China to consider unilateral nuclear disarmament, but for a country Scotland's size, that is not a problem. And I think it would help spur the international community by sending a strong signal to the rest of the world: you guys have not been taking this seriously, we need to do that, and we are going to take a lead. And the last of the points I want to raise under Force for Good relates to international development. Amazingly, because it's 38 years ago, the UK committed to spending 0.7% of our national wealth helping the developing world. It was a commitment in 1970, and it has never been fulfilled once by either the Labour Party or the Conservative Party in government. Something, frankly, I find a complete disgrace. How is it that our neighbours in Scandinavia, how is it the Norwegians, the Danes, how is it that the Dutch managed to fulfil their international obligations that the UK can't? I want to see Scotland do that. The only way we can do that is with the powers of independence. So those are the Force for Good arguments that I pursue. I also pursue the role that Scotland needs to play directly in the international community. I start off with the European Union. It's an institution much maligned. It's one that I don't uncritically support. In fact, I'm in favour of a referendum on the European Union Reform Treaty. Nevertheless, I am passionately in favour of Scotland remaining within the EU and being directly represented at the top table. The present situation is that Scottish ministers can go to the important Council of Ministers meetings, but as has been reported and confirmed, often they have to remain in what's known as the salle d'écoute, the room in which you can listen, i.e. the corridor. You're outside, you're not there where the decisions are taken, you're not at the top table, you're not playing a full part. And why do I think that's important? Well, I had the good fortune last Friday to be in Slovenia, a country smaller than Wales, a population of 2 million people, their capital Ljubljana smaller than Aberdeen. Slovenia, the first country of the recent Eastern enlargement of the EU that has a presidency of the European Union. That small country, with its small diplomatic service, is chairing all the meetings of